The thoughts, opinions, and general overall shade thrown on High at 9 News are those of the individual speakers and not those of High at 9 News, its audience, or its advertisers. The statements made do not constitute medical, legal, or financial advice, and for advice tailored to your specific situation, please consult with a licensed professional. Welcome to the High at 9 News Hour, where you will hear from cannabis industry experts and professionals from around the country talk about important topics while shining light on global issues and discussing cannabis as it relates to politics, regulation and reform, data and technology, science, research and medicine, family and parenting, art, celebrities and entertainment, fitness, sports, mental health and wellness, and plant-based medicines and entheogenics. Together, we are building a stronger community, fighting the stigma and creating change. With your hosts, Jason Beck and Rico Lamitte, joined by special industry expert correspondents from around the country, and daily antics brought to you by Cannabis. Coming to you live every Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific Time and high noon on the East Coast. And thank you all for getting high at 9 with us. Oh, yeah. Good morning, everybody. That's right. It is Friday, May 3rd, and today is National Montana Day. That's right. God's country. It's also
Big Sky.
Yes, that's right. School Lunch Hero Day. So shout out to all those people that provide school lunches. National Textiles Day, because where else would we be without textiles? National Sand Architect Day. National Raspberry Popover Day, Rico.
Yeah.
National Paranormal Day. National Two Different Colored Shoes Day.
No.
That's the most craziest one to me. I'm like, what lobbyist created this day for them? It's also National Specialty Abled Pets Day. National Garden Meditation Day. National Lumpy Rug Day. National Space Day. And, Rico, it's also, last but not least, National Chocolate Custard Day.
Oh, yeah, and I got my story is going to be talking about some chocolate, too.
I bet. Thank you all for joining us and getting high at 9 with us. It's also high noon on the East Coast. And please remember to like, share, and subscribe to us on all social media platforms. You can look up above on your screen to see exactly where we live on the internet. And we are live every Monday through Friday on YouTube, Rumble, Twitch, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and on our very own website at www.highat9news.com. But kicking it off first, that's right, we have the dope dad himself, Mr. Rico Lamitte, the baby diaper changer, the Tea Party Layer, and the Dope Dad Slayer. That's right, is none other than Rico Lamitte.
Tea Party Layer.
Yeah, Tea Party Layer. You like that?
I'm not touching that one. I got some good news this morning coming out of D.C. Chocolate City. Axios' Anna Spiegel reported this morning that Washington, D.C.'s Summer Garden program is officially going into effect, along with a broader swath of cannabis legislation that more clearly regulates cannabis sales and, for many, makes legal weed more seamless and widely available. The Summer Garden program launch marks the first time in D.C. that D.C. residents will be able to legally smoke or consume in licensed retailers' outdoor social spaces like rooftops and courtyards. The city's Alcoholic Beverage and Cannabis Administration, or ABCA, told Axios that the program, originally part of the 2022 DC Medical Cannabis Bill, is finally getting off the ground. And ABCA representatives say that they have accepted 2 summer applications already. The National Holistic Healing Center in DuPont Circle has been approved, although the endorsement has not been issued yet. And another 4 New Leaf Smoke Shop is awaiting approval for an endorsement, with a protest hearing scheduled for May 22nd. This means that registered DC residents and others now have the opportunity to buy medical cannabis and products to consume at licensed retailers who have an ABCA-approved Summer Garden endorsement. I guess that's like their city permit.
That sounds fancy.
But per the article, getting a summer garden is a highly regulated process that includes a 45-day public comment period for each of them. Proposed operating hours are set between 8 a.m. and midnight, and unfortunately, live entertainment will not be permitted, but retailers will be allowed to play ambient music. It's for real. They get to play ambient music and serve non-alcoholic drinks and food in their summer gardens. Retailers can also apply for an education tasting endorsement that Spiegel says allows a business to offer cooking and how-to classes plus tastings. This is great news for Chocolate City and the entire cannabis community out there, and I cannot wait to partake my next trip home. But I think the big question that needs to be asked here is, will we be seeing any of these politicians claiming to be pro-cannabis taking up lobbying lunches at either location to support local businesses since they care so damn much? I'm calling out both sides too. Will we see Chuck Schumer or Nancy Mace kicking it on a patio this spring or summer? Will Kamala Harris finally be walking back her words, and will she finally be making amends for the lies that she told about smoking weed in the backseat of her friend's car in college while listening to Tupac, knowing damn well that Tupac ain't even come out until 6 years after she finished law school? I guess we will see. But big win, I think, for the cannabis community out in DC. Congratulations on this, and I can't wait to see more pop up. I'm Rico Lamitte, dopest dad on the street for High at 9 News. What's the rest of the team think?
I'm confused by this, Rico. Is this just basically saying that, hey, you know what, if you have an open patio, then you can allow people to consume cannabis there? Is that basically what this thing is saying?
Or a rooftop, and you're a licensed retailer.
A licensed retailer? I mean, what if you want to self-certify as a retailer? Because they allow that.
Not as a retailer. You can self-certify as a patient.
Are they talking about all consumption or just edible?
It said smoking. You're allowed to smoke.
Well, I mean, this will be great for the summertime out there, but I can't imagine people out in the wintertime out using these patios that often.
No, I think it'll be great for the winter. No, excuse me. I think it'll be great for the spring and fall.
Yeah, the spring and fall. Yeah.
Have you been summertime in DC? Jason?
Summertime. Yeah. It's, well, you know, that's the whole reason why Congress is on recess all of August, is because the whole area is uninhabitable.
Oh yeah, that humidity lays on your ass like a do-rag,
man. It's so bad, bro. You want to lose some weight, bro, go out there.
Really. Swamp. Yeah, that's literally the swamp, right? And you go out to DC, you're out in the DMV, I'd say anytime between late June and early August. Like, nah, man, you going through like 3 shirts in a day. It's terrible.
Oh, that's for sure. You know. That's for sure. At least minimum two.
But Doc T, or even Dr. Marcusy over there getting your Neil deGrasse on. But doesn't cannabis, when you smoke it, doesn't it lower your body temperature too?
Correct.
So maybe it will be a little relief in the summertime for them too. So
you never know. I think this is cool for the city of DC, as far like, you know, I mean they're just gonna have people smoking it everywhere, anywhere, so they might as well have some designated areas where people can consume it. You know what I mean? That way they can say, oh, well, you're supposed to go and smoke over there, not over here.
Yeah, you remember the story I covered last year where that woman she sued because she said that her neighbor smoking was disturbing the peace.
Yeah. I think her name was Karen too.
Yeah, I think her name was.
It was. I think her name was Karen. Yeah. No, all puns aside.
That's a good point. I mean, patients don't have the opportunity. Patients whose landlords don't let them smoke in their apartment don't have a place to smoke.
That's me. That's me.
Could be a medicinal benefit to a lot of patients.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. You know what's actually is going to depend on that, Dr. T, whether or not it's a benefit for the patients or not, is if they allow people to bring in their own meds, or if they're going to force you to purchase theirs before allowing the ability to consume. I'm a big fan of allowing people to be able to consume their own products, charge them a tokage fee or whatnot for using the space, and leave it at that. But there is some consumption lounges that say that they have to purchase something from there in order to be able to consume, and they try to blame it on their insurance.
Well, I think until the DEA recommendation actually becomes a thing, that's kind of a slippery slope, letting people bring their own shit there.
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
No.
Like,
What if somebody brings a Sherm joint, bro?
Yeah, this is a licensed facility, and you would be responsible for anybody bringing in some shit from the outside and smoking it on your property.
I'm not buying all that.
I've dodged a couple PCP joints at parties back in the day, bro.
I mean, I don't see.
Hand it to you, and you're like, "Whoa, what's that smell?" Nah, I'm good.
Yeah, this is DC, man. There's a lot of zombies out there.
There is a lot of zombies out there. That is facts. That is facts. But I mean, time will. I mean, Dr. Mark, you're pretty close to DC. Are you going to go and try one of these pot patios this summer?
Yeah, hop on the Amtrak, head down there.
Did you say fuck no? Oh man!
I'll go on my own patio. What do I got to go down to Washington D.C. to smoke weed on someone else's patio? Get the fuck out of here!
Yeah, look at that. Look at that. I mean, fair enough. I mean, you know, Vermont is.
I mean, my patio overlooks Lake Champlain. What does their patio overlook? You know,
the White House.
Lot or
the White House
apartment building.
Oh hell no!
Oh man, we're gonna keep this train rolling. We're gonna roll right into a commercial, and we're gonna be right back.
Oh man, that was weird. Hey, you America. Do I look like Sean Connery? Good morning, America. Saman Razani coming to you live from sunny Los Angeles, California with the one and only highest host, Mr. Jason Beck, smoking on the best weed in the world. Did you know that we have an audio-only version of our podcast? You can find it on Apple, Google, Amazon, iHeartRadio, and Spotify. No excuses in 2024. If you haven't checked us out, check it out now. And also, check out what the Prophet's doing in 2024.
Jay.
Oh, yeah, y'all. When he is not making excuses for Republican miscues.
I don't ever need to make excuses.
Head honchos over here, you know, hitting switches and making fixes behind the scenes. Big shout out, big love to Jason rolling with the punches with us in the absence of Adam. His physical presence in the studio. Just got to give love because it's Friday. I like to give love on Fridays.
And Adam has done a great job being remote.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah, so shout out to Adam. Much thanks, Adam, for working on your vacation. We appreciate it. And
thanks, guys.
The viewers appreciate it.
Definitely appreciate you. And feathers from afar.
Yes. Oh, I like what you did there, Rico. That's cute. That's cute.
I'm on one today, man. Y'all know who it is. Up next, Jason.
Oh yeah. Good morning, everybody. Rico, just so you know, I have 2 stories today. And
hey man,
this is
2 chains.
This is the oh boy. This is the first one. They're saying marijuana rescheduling would not bring state markets into compliance with federal law. Congressional researchers say, you guys. If the federal government reschedules marijuana as proposed by the Justice Department, that would not legalize cannabis or bring state-regulated markets into compliance with federal law, congressional researchers said in a new analysis, you guys. However, moving marijuana from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3 of the Controlled Substances Act would allow state-licensed cannabis businesses to take federal deductions and remove certain barriers to marijuana research, the Congressional Research Service says, CRS, a legal sidebar report says. Days after it was confirmed that the DEA agreed with the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services that cannabis should be reclassified, CRS published an overview of legal implications on Thursday. If the federal government reschedules marijuana as proposed by the Justice Department, that would not legalize cannabis or bring state-regulated markets into compliance with federal law, congressional researchers said in a new analysis. However, oh, God damn it. That's the same thing. Perhaps more importantly, the nonpartisan office reiterated that rescheduling marijuana without other legal changes would not bring the state legal medical marijuana and adult use marijuana industry into compliance with federal controlled substances laws. With respect to the manufacture, distribution, and possession of adult use marijuana, if marijuana were moved to Schedule 3, such activities would remain illegal under federal law and potentially subject to federal prosecution, regardless of their status under state law, it says. Some criminal penalties for CSA violations depend on the schedule in which a substance is classified. If marijuana were moved to Schedule 3, applicable penalties for some offenses would be reduced. However, CSA penalties that apply to activities involving marijuana specifically, such as the quantity-based mandatory minimum sentences discussed above, would not change as a result of rescheduling, you guys. DEA is not required to set annual production quotas for Schedule 3 controlled substances, and however, the potential reclassification would not affect longstanding congressional appropriations rider, preventing the Justice Department from using its funds to interfere in state medical cannabis programs. The report echoes points CRS made in a separate marijuana analysis published back in January. Unlike Schedule 1 drugs, substances in Schedule 3 are defined as having an accepted medical use and may lawfully be dispensed by prescription, but only in the Food and Drug Administration FDA approves a specific product, CRS said. I've been telling you guys this forever, and now these guys are telling you it. FDA has approved certain cannabis-based medications, but botanical marijuana that's available in state markets is unlikely to meet the agency's standards for widespread approval. That's another thing I've been telling you guys. One of the key legal effects of moving marijuana to Schedule 3 concerns an Internal Revenue Service IRS code known as 280E, which blocks individuals from taking federal business deductions for expenses related to commerce involving Schedule 1 and Schedule 2 substances. Other collateral legal consequences would continue to attach to unauthorized marijuana-related activities, CRS said. Such collateral consequences arising from the federal prohibition of marijuana, the report says, include implications for bankruptcy proceedings, immigration status, and, oh yeah, Rico, that's right, gun ownership. The report also explains that scheduling changes can be implemented both through the administrative process that led to the new classification decision and through acts of Congress. In quotes, if Congress wishes to change the legal status of marijuana, it has broad authority to do so before, after the DEA makes final scheduling decisions, CRS said. Several proposals from the 118th Congress would remove marijuana from the Controlled Substances Act or move the substance to a less restrictive schedule. And if the federal government reschedules marijuana as proposed by the Justice Department, that would not legalize cannabis or bring state-regulated markets into compliance with federal law, congressional researchers are saying. So, reiterating that again. And however, moving marijuana to Schedule 3, yeah, that's all stuff that we have all covered, you guys. That is pretty much it on that. And they say yeah, that's pretty much it. This is what they're saying. I can't wait to hear what you guys have to say about that. I'm sorry it duplicated some of the article on that, but nonetheless, can't wait to hear what you guys have to say about this. And all you guys are going to get is 280E with nothing else, no criminal justice reform, nothing else. And yet you guys are all want to cry and cheer for it like it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. And I can't wait to hear what y'all got to say.
Well, 280E is a big thing, right?
It's huge.
280E is a big thing, but for everything else, I don't think it's a fair trade-off, Dr. T. We have lived with 280E our entire lives, okay? And the fact that we're still going to be living with everything but 280E for the rest of our entire life is not acceptable to me.
Well, I mean,
there's been a lot of,
but now that they're going to put this into Big Pharma, guess what? Big Pharma's not going to deal with 280E, right?
Big Pharma ain't going to deal with 280E, and they're going to control all the markets because they have the patents on all the THC and CBD products. So you're not even going to be able to find anything on the shelf that's going to be allowable under the son of a bitch. Why am the drug God damn it.
Somebody reboot Jason, you guys. Turn him off and turn him on again.
Yeah, reboot him. He's not angry. He's not angry.
Yes, thank you.
The reset button.
Thank you, Dr. Mark. You know exactly what I'm talking about.
Okay, so I printed out this document because I was very fascinated by this, and basically what it says is, yes, moving marijuana from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3 without any other legal changes. That's extremely important, because I think the get out of jail free card here is to carve out an exception like they did for alcohol and tobacco, which is ironic because alcohol and tobacco kill millions of people, right, Jean? And cannabis doesn't kill anybody, but they have to sort of carve it out because there is no place for herbal botanical in Schedule 3. Schedule 3 substances are all little pills or injections, right? Anabolic steroid injections or pills or powders like ketamine or solutions. So,
well, there's opium is in Schedule 3, and that's a compound product. But you're right, everything else is.
Who sells opium? So show me a pharmaceutical company.
I got a friend, Dr. Mark.
No. I get that. I got a friend too. But the point is that
you got a friend in a den.
Can I get an opium prescription from my doctor at CVS, and I could get a bottle of Merck produced opium? No. So this is just again. I listened to the shows all this week, Jason. You guys have covered this very important issue about Schedule 3, and there's a lot of misinformation out there that the existing medical licensed things in states are somehow immune from this. When you read this document, it basically says that they're out of compliance.
Yep. And the Food, Drug, and Cosmetics Act is the document that I was referring to earlier that I couldn't get spit up.
Yeah. And Jason, so I don't know. I don't want to give them any ideas, but 8 out of 10 lobbyists in Washington, D.C. work for pharmaceutical companies, right?
I believe that.
So pharmaceutical companies have a huge lobbying impact.
They have a huge budget for government affairs.
What they're going to do is they're going to rip up Rohrabacher or whatever that is.
Blumenauer McClintock now, formerly Rohrabacher Farr. Right. Yes.
They're going to. So basically, the unfair influence that pharmaceutical companies have down in D.C. are basically going to make sure that the DEA sits down on everybody who doesn't have the Schedule 3 wherewithal to basically manufacture and dispense Schedule 3 medicines. So I think this is very problematic.
Dr. Mark, and since we have Dr. T here too, I'm really interested to hear you. Dr. T, were you going to say something? Please go ahead.
I was going to say that the tincture of opium you can prescribe it. It's available under the brand name Pantopan.
Who's the manufacturer, Jean, of that product?
I'm taking notes over here.
Yeah, Pantopan.
I don't know. I think it's.
Is it a generic?
I think it's a Canadian manufacturer.
Oh, of course it's Canadian.
Do you need a den license?
Oh, you guys.
You need a DEA license, which most doctors have.
So,
for one, I don't see much changing. I mean, it was Schedule 1, which meant no medical use.
Here's the difference:
high risk and abuse and addiction risk, and states have been free to do what they wish on cannabis, and I just don't see how scheduling to Schedule 3 is suddenly going to ramp up some huge.
I'm going to tell you
enforcement.
how. I'm going to tell you how, Matthew, because you're bringing in a whole new agency to do enforcement with. Right now, as a Schedule 1 drug, the FDA has no jurisdiction in enforcing on Schedule 1 drugs because they are not perceived to have any medical value whatsoever. So the moment it moves to Schedule 3, you bring a whole new federal government organization in to regulate us. Okay, we have been dealing with the DOJ for our entire lives, and we have the Rohrabacher Farr Amendment, which is now Blumenauer McClintock, which tables that. Okay, and that is the reason that we have seen the growth of the cannabis industry throughout all of these different states is only because of that one document, not because of anything else, not because of some dumbass Cole memo or nothing else. It's only because of that law, period.
I think that cannabis use can cause paranoia in some people, and Jason is you're a great example of that at the moment.
I am not paranoid. I'm a realist.
I don't agree in any way, shape, or form. I hear that, and I'm seeing that all over the waves in social media, but logically figuring it doesn't make sense to me that all of a sudden with a descheduling and a recognition of medical usage,
it's not being descheduled, Matthew.
That's the point.
Lower scheduling.
Pardon me, a lower scheduling.
Yeah.
And an acknowledgement of medical usage. I don't see that there's going to be some gigantic wave of funding or enforcement.
You're forgetting who is now regulated to sell this product.
Exactly.
Which is big fucking pharma.
That's right.
But Dr. Mark, nobody was actually regulated federally to sell this.
That's the point, but there is now.
To sit down on the rest of the industry. And they are going to make sure that the DEA is funded to go shut everybody down.
I understand your concerns. I don't agree with them.
This is their thing now.
I understand both of your concerns. I just disagree. I disagree with your perspective, but I respect you both.
That's fair. That's fair.
And I'd also like to add
that's what
one
the whole
more thing.
show's about.
Me, I am giggling because I really dislike the cannabis industry and what it has become nationwide. It's literally just become another Walmart in about 99% of the markets. I just checked in with my friend Jason Zaworski. The same thing's happening in Michigan. Mm-hmm. All of the Michiganders are getting fired and replaced with migrant workers. All of the salaries are going down the drain. And maybe what we need is we need to crush this cannabis business, and we need to prevent cannabis from becoming just another Walmart, another Home Depot, and another example of capital mismanagement. And we as individual free humans can continue to grow weed, sell it to our friends, feed it to our friends, and make our own way in this world. And maybe this could actually be, in effect, a blessing in disguise for everybody who actually cares about cannabis and actually cares about the real messages in cannabis, which is not make money, fuck bitches, because that's what it's turned into. To me, it's just gotten disgusting. Like I'm a judge for the Emerald Cup, and so is Jason. Mm-hmm. What I've seen since 2017 until now is that the percentage of unsmokable weed entered in the Emerald Cup continues to exponentially rise. The only 10x I see in the weed industry is the 10xing of unsmokable fucking weed. Like now, when I judging used to be this wonderful experience of all of these different phenotypes and all of these different flavors, and seeing so much care represented from cultivators who entered into the Emerald Cup. And now what it is there's whole categories that are just unsmokable blue food. And all what I do now is I roll tiny little joints so that I can take the tiniest hit, and the moment I feel my throat burning, I can throw that one away. Literally, out of like 150 strains, I'll find 10 that are even tolerable to smoke. So for someone like me who's not, and to my own detriment, who's horrible at business and who's not focused on making more money than everybody through the capitalist ethos, I see that there could be a real silver lining, and this might return this into more of a farmer's market, homebrew model. And what we as cannabis lovers can do is we can just stop asking for permission from the government. And as long as we don't try to scale up to 100,000 square feet, we can make our way really successfully selling cannabis that is high value and high quality to people that we like and love. And that's also, I'd have to say, what I'm seeing in California is the whole trap market. As long as you're not trying to grow 500 lights, my friends who have 8 and 20 lights and are selling small bits of rosin, small amounts of edibles that they're making, and ounces and half ounces of weed to friend groups are doing amazingly. The people who are trying to scale up, push everybody out of the industry, lower input costs, and make all the money are failing. And I think that is something that we should all meditate on today.
Don't make yourself a Mark.
Fair enough.
Unless you're Dr. Mark.
Fair enough. I mean, but Matthew.
So I do a lot of drugs, so I could be wrong.
Matthew's talking about like the traditional market, and I think that's going to be the only market that we have left by the time that this whole thing is all said and done. But time will tell, and I guess we are going to roll right on into Dr. Gene Talleyrand. That's right. He's the doctor. He's the founder of Medican and the founder of the CESC. And at one point in time, he probably even wrote your parents' recommendation. Here, doing it all again. That's right. It is none other than Dr. Gene Talleyrand.
Thank you, Jason. Happy Friday, everyone. My headline is from HuffPost by Arthur Delaney. It's embarrassing. Biden administration not implementing cannabis research reform. Even as President Joe Biden's administration is reconsidering the criminal classification of cannabis, an epic policy shift, they are dragging their feet on the much simpler question of researching the medical impact of cannabis. Congress passed a law at the end of 2022 designed to make it easier for organizations such as universities to obtain cannabis and study its potential medical uses. Restrictions on cannabis research was so obviously worthwhile that the law, sponsored by Representative Earl Blumenauer and Representative Andy Harris, passed the House by an overwhelming bipartisan vote of 325 to 95. And the Senate approved it by not even bothering to count the votes. It's embarrassing, said Blumenauer, who is retiring at the end of this Congress. I've seen no evidence that they're at work to make this research go much more smoothly. I mean, this is not low-hanging fruit. This is picking it off the ground. It just mystifies me. The Medical Marijuana and Cannabidiol Research Act gave the Department of Health and Human Services 1 year to submit its report, but the department has yet to do so. Blumenauer and Harris complained about the blown deadline and continued research obstacles in a March letter to agency heads, but received no response. Recent moves to reschedule cannabis under the Controlled Substances Act represents an effort by the federal government to catch up to public opinion, which a majority of the Americans say should be legal. According to Blumenauer, the government's apparent refusal to give greater leeway to researchers shows the bureaucratic inertia against a more enlightened view of cannabis. Conducting clinical trials to measure the efficacy of cannabis as a medical treatment requires approvals from HHS and the DEA, which the agencies have refused to grant, even in the cases where state governments have funded studies into the potential benefits of medical cannabis for military veterans. Paul Armentano, Deputy Director of NORML, said that the Blumenauer-Harris law had no impact on the cannabis research landscape. He faulted the law itself for adding a requirement that the U.S. Attorney General sign off on research applications. Unfortunately, while I think some folks were acting in good faith when they were supporting that bill, it was so watered down by the end, said Armentano, that I was not convinced it was going to lead to any significant changes, and I don't think today it had. The Biden administration's dramatic move to reschedule cannabis may now open the door to new research. Betsy Adler with MAP says that the change could be a useful signal. Recategorizing cannabis could prompt certain bureaucrats to look at processes and restrictions and begin to take action toward removing barriers for patients. The majority of states have medical cannabis laws. In California, anyone over 21 can walk into a dispensary today and purchase cannabis. In my opinion, you can't put the genie back in the bottle. Once rescheduling happens, we would then turn to the FDA for approval. The ball's in their court. How would doctors write a prescription for a plant, and how will the FDA regulate it? Will they make a new track with cannabis like they have for alcohol and tobacco, or will they just let cannabis sit in the current botanical track, which historically has only approved 0.1% of the applications? In the 26 years that I've been involved with medical cannabis, I've seen it slowly become more accessible to patients. If rescheduling happens, the war won't be over, but a significant battle will be won by patients who can say that their government finally agrees with them. Cannabis has accepted medical use. This is Dr. Jean Talleyrand with High at 9 News.
Man, Dr. T, I love this article. Telling Biden they got some Democrats telling Biden all about himself and his lack of obligation to the country to serve the people of his constituency. I love this article, Dr. T. This was great. And to have you deliver it was even better.
I knew you would love it. But the point is that the government's has been slowing restrictions on research. This potential rescheduling may reduce some of those barriers.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. T, thank you for covering this. And yes, I second Jason. I love the passion.
Yeah,
there behind your words. And I think this goes to really put a exclamation point behind. This shit was lip service. It was lip service, and it was a bunch of muddied up words. And it because it had no real heat behind any of it. Like, this is just going to polarize people going into the polls. They're going to think they have something, and they don't really have to have a new plan for anything. Nothing's really going to be implemented or changed anytime soon. They're just kicking the can down the road as they always do. And we'll be lucky if we get like any exact verbiage on what's going to really happen with this quote unquote rescheduling recommendation.
People are going to get screwed.
I'll
put it to you like this. Imagine whatever is the worst thing you think can happen to cannabis, and that's probably what'll end up happening. That's my prediction.
No, I don't think I don't think the worst.
Think of the worst. And then if you plan on it being the worst, then whatever happens is going to be better, Rico. So then you'll be happy. It's perspective, bro.
Yeah, I guess so.
Or for the worst, expect the best.
Yeah, see?
Always. I always do. I only control the controllable, not Nick Bradley.
Oh man, that's good. That's good, you guys. We're gonna go to a
get
commercial.
it now, Rico.
Yeah, we're gonna go to a commercial. We're gonna be right back. Thank you so much for that, Dr. T.
Let's go.
The Control Tower from Highly Educated has perfected the dab. Utilizing the concept of thin film evaporation, you can waste none of it and taste all of it. The micro texture of the SE pillar increases nucleation at elevated temperatures. And with the tower propelling at 2,600 RPMs, it's certainly the most efficient dab experience to date. The Control Tower from Highly Educated. All right, stop whatever you're doing. Make sure that you hit that like button. Also, we would appreciate it. You will appreciate it, and YouTube will appreciate it. Also, make sure you subscribe to the channel if you've not subscribed already. We are already creeping. We've already gained almost 50 subscribers since we just hit that 3,000 mark. So thank you to all of you new ones, and all of you new ones that haven't hit it yet. Just be like everybody else and just hit the button. And then all of the articles that we cover on today's show, you can read directly on our website at www.highat9news.com. And looking forward to seeing everybody tonight at this shit show over here at High at 9 Studios. Can't wait to see everybody this evening. It's going to be a lot of laughs and a lot of fun. And if you haven't got your tickets, make sure you head over to cloudmedia.partners and go to events and sign up. I'm Jason Beck, and this is Smoky Vanilla. And if you want to feel as good as I look, then you need to get a stretch and smoke with Smoky Vanilla.
Hi, I'm Smoky Vanilla. I have my bachelor's degree in kinesiology, and I'm a sports massage therapist and stretch coach. I focus mostly on individuals that are in sport with chronic pain or injury. I love to intuitively create and customize a session based on the individual that I'm working with. We'll go over a few postural assessments, work together to create a wellness journey based on the health history, past injuries, or anything still affecting you today. And we'll get you back on your feet right away with less pain.
We're about to stretch, and then we're gonna smoke, because we're gonna get on our stretch and smoke. If you want to feel as good as I look, then you need to come on down and get a stretch and smoke with none other than Smoky Vanilla.
Recognized New England-based organic chemistry expert always brings the Friday heat to the High at 9 News family. So get your notepads ready for another Friday session with the professor himself, Dr. Mark, in the dark. Scialdone.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Hey, thank you, Rico. Thank you. Happy Friday, everybody. Hope you guys are having a great week. Historic week, right? So I guess the new 420 is now 430, right? So 430 was the day that they announced the news that they're moving to Schedule 3. So 430 is the new 420. Okay, so my article today talks about one of my favorite compounds, right? Delta 8 THC comes from the MJ Biz Daily, and it's entitled Farm Bill Framework Seeks to Define Hemp. Doesn't mention Delta 8 THC. Oh, go figure. Okay, so Democratic leaders, if there's such a thing, in the U.S. Senate Agricultural Committee seek to define industrial hemp in an upcoming U.S. Farm Bill according to the framework the group unveiled on Wednesday. The framework stopped short of attempting to put the genie back in the bottle. You know, I hate that analogy, genie back in the bottle. I like toothpaste back in the tube, but if you go on YouTube, you'll see there's a guy who puts toothpaste back in the tube. But I think
Genius can actually get back in the bottle, right?
I think he's just rewind. He's just playing his video in reverse. I think that's how the guy puts the toothpaste back in the tube. Anyway, the framework stops short of putting the genie back in the bottle for intoxicating hemp-based cannabinoids, which we've talked about a lot here at High at 9 News, which inadvertently were legalized in 2018, the year when the Farm Bill authorized industrial hemp production nationwide. On page 74 of the 94-page section about agricultural commodities, the Senate framework indicated lawmakers seek to define industrial hemp or lower regulatory barriers for farmers who are growing industrial hemp for grain and fiber. Are there such hemp farmers? Didn't know that. We are very pleased to see that there is reduced regulatory burden on hemp, grain, and fiber farmers, Jonathan Miller, General Counsel for the U.S. Hemp Roundtable, told MJ Biz Daily on Wednesday. Creators of the framework also seek to eliminate the ban currently prohibits people convicted of felonies from producing hemp or participating in the U.S. domestic hemp production program. Miller said the U.S. Hemp Roundtable was thrilled that the Farm Bill framework seeks to remove the felony ban, which was part of the compromise to get hemp included into the 2018 Farm Bill. We've been fighting to get this repealed ever since then, Miller said in a 2018 concession. We think farmers who have paid their time should be able to grow a completely legal crop. We also don't want other farmers hassled with having to get background checks when they haven't done anything wrong either. Republican leaders in the House Ag Committee also released a framework for the 2024 Farm Bill, although it made no mention of hemp whatsoever. Reduced regulatory burden and repealing the felon ban were both part of the Hemp Roundtable Farm Bill priorities, which were co-signed by 33 nonprofit groups representing domestic hemp farmers. The devil's in the detail, Miller cautioned about the framework released on Wednesday. But any progress on this front would be very much welcomed by the industry. No word on intoxicating hemp. So U.S. hemp farmers had eagerly awaited news of whether hemp would be addressed in the Farm Bill by extending it after it expired in 2023, as a growing number of states continue to ban or regulate hemp-derived cannabinoids. In March, 20 state attorneys asked Congress to address the issue of intoxicating hemp cannabinoids, insinuating that they present a health and safety crisis. When hemp production was legalized in 2018, conservative lawmakers opposed to marijuana reform voted in favor of the Farm Bill, hoping to create economic prosperity in the country's struggling agricultural regions. A boom in the popularity of cannabidiol, followed by, as did a glut of hemp on the market, until savory chemists, maybe savvy chemists this should be, realized that unused CBD could be used to synthesize delta-8 THC, an intoxicating cannabinoid found in minuscule amounts in both hemp and marijuana. But neither the Farm Bill framework released on Wednesday makes any mention of delta-8 THC at all, or other controversial cannabinoids. Miller told MJ Biz Daily that any effort to treat hemp-based cannabinoids like marijuana will also wreak havoc on the non-intoxicating CBD industry, because most full-spectrum CBD products have THC in them. we've been afraid that the Farm Bill might include that language and have been lobbying very aggressively not to see it. So far, it was not mentioned in the bill, and we hope it doesn't find the light of day. So that's the article today. So what do we want to say about this? Well, let's go to the whiteboard here. Can we blow this up on the screen? You guys see this?
We can see it. We can see it, Dr. Moore.
This.
Yeah.
Okay. This is Delta 8 THC. Right? Delta 8 THC is not made by the plant. It is a degradation product that comes from isomerization of Delta 9. So, can you see small amounts of Delta 8 THC? Probably not until you actually start refining and extracting and distilling and isolating cannabinoids will you actually start to see Delta 8 THC. You will not see Delta 8 THC in a COA for flower because cannabinoid acids is what the plant makes. And so Delta 8 THCA is a compound that is not found in cannabis. Zero found in cannabis. The only reports, there's 3 reports in the chemical literature of Delta 8 THCA.
What
Delta 8 THCA is basically a isomerization product from the naturally occurring Delta 9 THCA, which does naturally occur. But Delta 9 THCA, if given the opportunity, can isomerize to Delta 8, but that's a non-natural process. That doesn't occur naturally in the hemp plant. That occurs only when humans start messing around with hemp. So right now, Delta 8 THC isn't being made by isomerization of Delta 9. It's being made by the acid-catalyzed cyclization of THC. So the hemp hustlers have to stick to the notion that somehow this is naturally occurring in the hemp plant and that their process is somehow magically sequestering it or isolating it. Well, it doesn't naturally occur. It's a degradation product. It's in that way, it's similar to CBN, right? You won't find a strain that's high in CBN, but you can find CBN in aged flower because it's a degradation product. Similar to that, Delta 8 THC is a degradation product, right? Mm-hmm. But it's not something that's made in the plant. When they say it's a minuscule amount, any minuscule amount that's found in flower material is an artifact of the measurement that's made, basically measure the amount of cannabinoids. So thermodynamics rears its ugly head because Delta 8 is more thermodynamically favored than Delta 9. So if given the opportunity, Delta 9 will convert over into Delta 8. But that's not where the Delta 8 comes from. Delta 8 comes from this chemical reaction of CBD with acid. However, it should be noted that the regulatory auspices of the Farm Bill ends at harvest. So if those plants were already deemed as hemp because they have low amounts of THC and low amounts of THCA, what they're not regulating is what's done with the CBD that's produced from that hemp. And so the CBD that's produced from that hemp can undergo a chemical reaction to make Delta 8 THC is what they were making at first, but now the hustlers have gotten sophisticated in their chemistry enough that they can actually stop at Delta 9. So you can make Delta 9 or Delta 8 THC from CBD. The Farm Bill doesn't address this at all because this is after harvest, right? So holding out that somehow the Farm Bill is going to say what can be done with the CBD that's produced from hemp, good luck on that. This is, again, where the FDA has dropped the bailiwick because if you want to grow corn, that corn will be grown under USDA regulations if it's on U.S. soil. But if you want to make cans of corn at a factory, that's going to be regulated under the Food and Drug Administration, right? Mm-hmm. You'll probably have safety inspections carried out by your local Board of Health and local safety authorities, but that's under the auspices and the standards put forth by the Food and Drug Administration.
Mm-hmm.
So the Food and Drug Administration, in your story, Jason, or I think it was your story, Rico. Oh, no. It was your story, Dr. Talleyrand, where you were talking about the FDA's program to do R&D on cannabidiol, the report that's late, right? That's probably never going to come in, right? So ultimately, again, the Food and Drug Administration has figured out, well, we need a different regulatory mechanism to regulate cannabis. And putting it into Schedule 3 is not a new regulatory mechanism. It's their old tricks from 1970. And now they're putting it into Schedule 3. Schedule 3 drugs are made by FDA-registered pharmaceutical manufacturers, paid for by drug insurance, which is a big scam, and sold at billion-dollar drugstores, which are slowly but surely dumbing down the U.S. population on all these toxic FDA drugs and fast food. So at the end of the day, folks, don't rely on the Farm Bill to basically put a stopper in the Delta 8 bathtub. It ain't. Delta 8 bathtub is full, and, I don't know what they're going to do in terms of trying to regulate it, other than, Delta 8 itself is probably no more toxic than Delta 9, but its manufacturer in an unregulated market is extremely problematic because there's no safety standards, there's no quality control standards. And so these people are making these products, and the 800-pound gorilla in the room during this moving from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3 is the alternative hemp cannabinoid market, which is in excess of $28 billion. And moving cannabis from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3 doesn't even come close to addressing that issue. So that's going to continue to proliferate.
Well, Dr. Mark. Dr. Mark, so I think you have basically just explained exactly why Delta 8 was not included in this Democratic version of the updated Farm Bill, is because since Delta 8 doesn't naturally occur in cannabis, why would it naturally occur in the Farm Bill?
Right. What if the Farm Bill's regulation ends at harvest when you cut down that plant?
That's exactly why it's not in there. That makes perfect sense.
Right. Well, get a PhD on a panel, and hopefully he can make things make perfect sense.
That makes perfect sense.
Useful.
Makes perfect sense.
The only problem with the Farm Bill is its classification of hemp. Hemp can't be classified by levels of THC.
Yeah, that's true.
It has to be classified by a ratio. Until they use science to classify it rather than the idiotic method they're currently using, the whole bill is a joke.
Fair enough. Fair enough. And on that,
and the highest value for hemp, let's face it, I think, hemp is not, let's just go out and say it. I think the driver for hemp is going to be not psychoactive cannabinoids, and it's not going to be fiber, and it's not going to be hempcrete. It's going to be food. We need to feed more people with less farmable land every year. And when it comes to creating protein per acre, hemp is the hands-down winner over soybeans. But if you want to try to take on the industrial agricultural complex that is soybeans today, now you're slugging it out with Archer's Daniel Midland,
Cargill,
yep. Syngenta.
You're
these
not going to beat those
companies
guys.
like Syngenta that sell crop protection chemicals also bought seed companies so they could genetically engineer the seeds to be resistant to their fungicides and herbicides. And Monsanto is often painted as, the only actor here, but they're all in it. They're all engineering seeds to be resistant to their chemicals, right? So this becomes a very ugly circle of things, because now the commodity foods that are showing up all over are basically, from genetically engineered crops that are engineered to be resistant to crop protection chemicals. And you'd think, again, we would have learned that, things like hemp, which don't require pesticides, is a much better protein producer than something like soybeans, which require a lot of pesticides. They talk about fiber, and they talk about if you want to compare hemp fiber to cotton requires a huge pesticide load because the cotton fibers are attacked by weevils and other insects. You don't have to worry about that with hemp. So when it comes to the driver for hemp, it's not CBD, it's not Delta 8, it's not all these, it's food, it's protein, it's seed oil. It's a heart-healthy seed oil, and we need to feed more people on this planet every day, and that's going to be the driver. And now as a byproduct from producing food out of hemp, now you have all the fiber, right? So the symbiotic relationship that existed for many years between the lumber mill and the paper mill, where you would take trees, mow them down, send them to the lumber mill, lumber that into wood, and then take the scraps off the floor, the sawdust and all that stuff, and make that into craft paper cellulose. There needs to be infrastructure investment to basically invest in hemp seed crushing facilities, and then across the street from that seed crushing facility, they'll have a place where they can decorticate fiber and deal with trying to make true on the industrial aspects of hemp, which is that it does make a good, strong cellulose fiber. You can make some packaging materials. It is a total frickin' myth. Whenever you see all things plastic can be made with hemp, that is bullshit. If you could make all things plastic from cellulose, why wouldn't they be doing it already? And if you could do it economically viable, there are more cheaper and readily abundant sources of cellulose. Hemp is not a source of plastic. It's a source of cellulose, which is basically paper. And the last time I checked, paper ain't plastic, right? So there are applications where we can take plastic out of commerce and replace it with cellulosic-based packaging, but now you're up against the oil companies and the big chemical companies. So a lot of things have to happen in order for the industrial hemp revolution to actually happen. But I think, this changing of the Farm Bill is not going to address the $28 billion market of psychoactive cannabinoids that are derived from hemp. I'll stop there.
All right, and on that, we're going to go to a commercial. We're going to be right back. Get ready for the return of the shit show to Los Angeles, returning Friday, May 3rd, 7 p.m. to midnight at a brand new venue. Comedy sets by comedians such as Demi York, Lindsay Ames, Alyssa Phillips, Chris Thayer, Josh Shakespeare, Fumi Avi, Jay Snow, Brent Weinbach, Chris Kelly, and hosted by none other than Abdullah Saeed. So head over to www.cloudmedia.partners now to get your tickets, and we'll see you there. Oh, yeah. Oh, yes. Coming up next, that's right. It is the immortal one. The Count himself, Mr. Mathieu St. Germain, who is currently judging all the flour. And he even took photos of every single one of them the other day. I don't even understand how you get that much memory in your phone. But nonetheless, it is Mathieu St. Germain.
Your brother Jason, happy Friday, everybody. Happy Friday to everybody out there watching, my fellow correspondents. I've got a really interesting story. It's about a concept called HPPD, or syndrome. Longest, strangest trip. Some psychedelic drug users are stuck with unwelcome highs. AJ took 2 small hits off a cannabis vape pen, a common ritual with his morning coffee. Moments after exhaling, a transfigured kaleidoscopic vision of the world emerged before his eyes. Some colors are seeping into other colors, the 30-year-old said, gesturing across his art-filled living room in Yorba Linda. That Persian tapestry on the wall, the flowers are flowing like the wind back and forth, and the centerpieces, horses and other animals, they're stagnant still, but I can feel them kind of moving, almost like a gallop. AJ, who requested anonymity to discuss his drug use and medical history, was on no other mind-altering substances beyond the caffeine and cannabis that he had just used. Fantastical vision, which he's come to expect, in some ways even enjoy, a lingering effect of past drug use, or a manifestation of a rare condition called hallucinogen persisting perception disorder, or HPPD, which has puzzled psychiatrists and researchers, raised alarms as psychedelic drugs have become more mainstream from therapeutic and recreational use. Psychiatrists, researchers, and more than a dozen people with HPPD said in interviews that the mysterious and beguiling condition may be more common than currently known. Some who suffer from HPPD develop the disorder after years of using hallucinogenic drugs such as LSD, mushrooms, etc. For others, just a single experience can bring on these lasting effects. A smaller number of cases, it has been triggered by MDMA and even cannabis alone. Some with the condition live for years with frequent or near constant visual aberrations. Others experience mild symptoms that pass after a few months. Many develop serious psychological and mental conditions, including anxiety, depression, and disassociation from reality. At its most severe, HPPD can destroy people's lives or impair their basic faculties. Some lose jobs or fail out of school. AJ's visual perception was so affected that he had to relearn how to write and drive. The professionals who treat people with this symptom say they don't want to discourage safe and informed use of psychedelics, but they warn that the condition can be life-changing and that you should know the risk before dabbling in these substances. Like any drug, doctors say these powerful substances can have side effects. For some, those effects don't subside, and they are left to live with them for months, years, or the rest of their life. Informed consent would mean full awareness of the risks, and I don't think that's happening right now. Sarah Ouimet, a licensed psychotherapist in Oakland who's treated more than 20 people with this condition. Only going to see more cases, unfortunately, as people are doing psychedelics like the Wild West. Former Harvard Medical School psychiatry professor and one of the world's leading authorities in HPPD, Dr. Stephen Locke, described the condition as really at the brain-mind interface. Like the brain itself, much about the disorder remains a mystery. First description in a mainstream medical journal took place more than 65 years ago. It was first included as a diagnosis in the DSM, which is basically like the Handbook for Psychiatry and Psychology. After Dr. Henry Abraham, considered the grandfather of HPPD research, retired in 2017, Locke took on many of his patients. Since then, Locke has developed a general working theory of what causes HPPD and how it works. Long after the drug has left the body, there's nevertheless a persistence of abnormal activity in the brain. Exposure to psychedelics such as LSD and psilocybin is believed to be able to alter parts of the brain, he said. On Sunday, one of Locke's colleagues will present the findings of a recently completed survey at the annual conference of the American Psychiatric Association. Locke and other researchers from Harvard, Columbia, and Johns Hopkins and the New York State Psychiatric Institute conducted an online survey of more than 650 people who self-identified as having this condition. Results present one of the most complete pictures to date of the scope of the perplexing condition and the efforts. Nearly half of the respondents reported taking multiple precipitating drugs. About 1/5 said they only took LSD. Only 13% said they only took mushrooms. 5% just cannabis, and the rest was a mixture. There appears to be a correlation with previous mental health diagnoses as well. More than half the survey's respondents reported that they had previously struggled with anxiety, panic attacks, depression, PTSD, and other conditions. It's baffling as some people can develop permanent trip symptoms after using drugs only a few times, while others emerge from years of frequently dosing on LSD and mushrooms with no lingering issues. Studies have found that 2 to 4% of people who experiment with psychedelics will develop HPPD, and many of them will have short-lived or mild cases. Some experts believe a bad trip can inflict severe trauma that leaves people with a condition akin to PTSD. Dr. Wesley Ryan has treated about a dozen people with the condition. Such patients often experience depersonalization and derealization. They feel like they are witnessing their own life from the outside or that nothing is real. Experts say a person's mindset and the setting in which they take hallucinogens are key to avoiding negative experience. Being with trusted people in a safe, comfortable location a long way to avoiding a bad trip that could potentially trigger the onset of HPPD. Many who develop symptoms experienced trauma as children, and In psychedelic therapy, these drugs are used to help people unlock feelings and work through past trauma. In non-therapeutic environments, often there's a risk of experience might amplify a traumatic or your greatest fear. Trauma resurfaces during a psychedelic experience, Gilson said. The result for some is the fight or flight system gets activated. It doesn't get turned off. It can be a long journey back to the unaltered world, and some never make it. An HPPD diagnosis does not necessarily mean being doomed to suffer from the disorder's most disorienting, debilitating effects. Few HPPD sufferers who spoke with the Times say that they've tried taking more psychedelics in a way back to their pre-trip existence. Like back in the old sitcom days where you got hit once in the head and you forgot everything, you got hit in the head again, and then you remembered everything. Gilson, this Texas psychotherapist, said the visual changes she experienced after having HPPD mostly resolved themselves. And she says they haven't gone away entirely, but she considers these low-grade lingering effects a gift. I'm looking at a tree in my backyard right now, and the way the sun is shining, some leaves sparkle, while others are in the shade. He described a kaleidoscopic effect. I don't see it as anything that's something or scary or wrong moment, or if perception has been opened. Nearly half of the respondents to Locke's survey who tried yoga, meditation, neurofeedback, and other non-medical treatments reported that they were helpful. Many, simply coming to terms with its negative effects can be an effective way to reduce them. This disorder has a stigma and a shame attached to it. People often dismiss people with HPPD as druggies. They deserve the same amount of caring and attention as people with any serious life-altering condition. For that to happen, doctors need to know that this is a thing. So I'd like to just add some quick comments before I turn it over, and that's that I think it's very important that a lot of what's getting overlooked in both the recreational and medical models is that there is a spiritual component to psychedelics as well as our entire life. And there is a reason that the majority of these substances and knowledge and use of these substances were transferred in this style fashion, because it really benefits greatly from having a mentor who is trusted, trustable, and has experiences with these substances. It's like this article points to, and unlock things in your mind and your body that may not regress or backtrack to the state when you first took these. As Aldous Huxley said, and the article pointed to, oftentimes we go through doors of perception that are one way and we can't go back through them the other. Number one thing I would suggest for anybody suffering from HPPD is looking into the yoga aphorisms of Patanjali and Hindu and Buddhist spirituality, because they speak to these states and they speak to navigating these states in a healthy and whole way. And the biggest thing that I think in this that causes a detriment in this is thinking that this is purely a medical condition, something that can be either solved medically and or needs to be solved. And so that's my initial thoughts, and I'd like to turn it over to the panel here, and let's dig into this. This is Mathieu St. Germain on a beautiful Friday for the High at 9 News. Take it away, guys.
Man, so this guy had a bad trip. Am I right about that, Mathieu St. Germain?
They're saying they think some people can have this from a bad trip, Jason, but many of these people have just had this from one time or repeated psychedelic experience. And I'd have to say that I've had an abundance of perspective changes and differences that have occurred in my brain and the way that I interface with the world that have never regressed from psychedelics. I see the majority of them as a blessing. Mm-hmm. A lot of things that can be unlocked here, and there's a lot of these states. Psychedelics in many ways are an accelerant or spiritual states, as well as an amplifier for one's current personality and spiritual state. And in not addressing that, we leave a lot of these things that can happen that might be akin to what the Hindus call siddhis, 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 or spiritual powers. They could be mistaken for medical problems or symptoms if somebody doesn't have someone with this experience to actually check in on. Like if you don't have a psychedelic big brother or big sister, aunt or uncle to bounce these off of, they could be very scary. And I've seen that happen. And I've seen myself, I was going out of my body and having experiences with Christ consciousness on a high dose of LSD when I was 18. And I wanted to call 911 on myself because I thought I was having a psychotic break. I was able to call a friend's mom who had a lot of experience in the world. He was able to understand that, explain to me, and I could understand that what I was going through was real. It wasn't really for talking about with most people. And she told me to just basically be safe, get to the river where there was nobody, hang out with nature till I came down, and then immediately seek her out so we could discuss these states and experiences, which we did for my benefit. I hadn't had somebody like that to fall back on. I would have called 911 on myself. I would have been placed in mental health care treatment for at least 72 hours. I probably would have been given high amounts of Thorazine or Xanax. I might think that I'm mentally ill even to this day. Luckily, I had somebody to rely on. I think medicalization and recreationalization of these substances leaves a lot dropped off the plate and leaves a lot of mysteries that can be mischaracterized.
I think doing psychedelics actually demonstrates your ability to have basically to be able to control your own mind, because the power of suggestive thought is extremely intense when you're in these psychedelic states. And I think knowing and being able to be able to tell yourself that you're okay, even if you are thinking that you're not, is a big thing that I think people need to learn just in life in general.
Jason, would you call that? Would you call that states' rights?
That's cute. That's cute. That's cute. Dr. Mark, what do you think about all this, Dr. Mark? All this psychedelic science going on over here.
Yeah, I mean, they're finding again in clinical work now that use of psychedelics is still having efficacy months after taking these medications. This is like the Johns Hopkins stuff and the stuff that's going on at NYU. I think, Matt, you've talked about this before, right? So not only are they using psilocybin mushrooms, they're also using MDMA. I think Rick Doblin is beating that drum pretty hard with the group at Hopkins. But yeah, I mean, these experiences, it's they call them a mystic experience, can have efficacy in behavioral disorders like PTSD and depression months after the experience happens. And you'd think that, medical science would be clamoring all about that, but, the business opportunity is like, well, we only sell this drug to this patient a couple times a year. That doesn't work. They want to sell it every week, right?
Yeah.
So to have efficacy last 6 months, that speaks against, trying to make money selling drugs, right?
Damages the for-profit model, 100%, doctor.
Yeah, right.
The other thing is, if we start pushing, these pharma companies start pushing psychedelics as spiritual enhancers, you're going to end up with a bunch of Saint Germains who want to end capitalism. Ending capitalism is really not going to be good for the stock market. Oh, and one of the things I'd like to speak to as well is I'm a science nerd, and I'm also a mystic. And how does that work? Well, I'll explain it to you. I see that there's two different states. One of these states is consensus reality. And consensus reality is where allopathic medicine, scientific method work, because this is the external reality where we're all trying to find agreed definitions and agreed behaviors so that we can exist in harmony together as individual navigators on this planet. So that's consensus reality. That's basically means the reality we need to agree upon to move the ball forward. However, each one of us also has an internal mystic reality that's completely different from everyone else's reality. Can I prove that? No, I can't. That's why it's an internal mystic reality. So I deal with things in my internal mystic reality through my psychedelic and other spiritual and other experiences. Don't ever try to convince other people of those experiences, because they are unique to me as a being. It's very difficult to take these unique one-to-one experiences and then put them into a medical or scientific model, because they tend to not be repeatable. They tend to not be reproducible. I can't take mushrooms and go to the same place every time, even though I might go to the same place occasionally. I can't take LSD and have the exact same state recreated unless just by a wild luck that it is. It's not something that you can just take like an aspirin and you know what it's going to do every time. So it's near impossible to fit that into a medical model. And so what we need, I think, is medical psychedelics, recreational psychedelics, a spiritual, mystical component. Organizations like Zendo, like other organizations that are beginning to form, where people can find psychedelic big brothers and sisters, psychedelic peer support groups. You can feel like you're not going crazy when you're getting messages from the direct center of yourself that are completely 180 degrees in disagreement with maybe the Abrahamic thought control models that were passed down to you from your family, or the messages that you're seeing from society and media and marketing. Because what I've seen with most people who have had real tough times on psychedelics and what we call bad trips is you begin to get messages that are completely, again, 180 degrees obverse from the messages that they were programmed with by their parents and society, and their care for and love of their family, their wish to be included in society, then creates this dissonance between these messages that they know and feel in the center of their being to be true, contrasting with these programming messages that they've grown up with. So they start to think they're crazy. That's what happened to me. I was taking acid to have fun and go to the Grateful Dead. He started doing these pseudoscientific spiritual experiments with the psychedelics, and I contacted the Christ consciousness. I was totally a-religious, and so I was contacting the voice of God, and this voice was telling me, oh, we were all a human family. The earth is our spaceship. We have to protect our life support systems, to share abundantly of this earth, and we have to live as a family. I was like, shit, I went crazy. If I start telling people I'm getting the Jesus message, I know I'm not Jesus, I'm Saint Germain, we all got to get along and start sharing everything, they're going to lock me up. And so I thought I needed to call 911. And again, the grace of having somebody who was not a medical or institutional authority that I could call on that could help talk me through what was happening in my life, and alter the trajectory of my life greatly.
Mm-hmm. Fair enough. Good, valuable lessons right there, Mathieu St. Germain. I'm gonna roll right into our last story of the day. We're a little late on time. Rico had to pull a Houdini on us. But and just for fair mention, this is a sad story, but I really want to hear what Dr. Mark has to say about this story, because this one is a humdinger, you guys. A mother of a Portland man killed by cannabis extraction machine files a $24 million wrongful death lawsuit. The mother of a Portland man killed in a White City, Oregon warehouse explosion after a butane hash oil extraction machine malfunctioned is suing the owner of the company as well as the landlords of the warehouse for $24 million in a Multnomah County Circuit Court. Furious Elderidge, 24, was helping assemble a butane hash oil extraction system in Southern Oregon in 2021 when, according to the lawsuit, butane leaked out from the system and caused an explosion that left Elderidge severely burned. After being life-flighted to Oregon Health and Science University Hospital in Portland, Elderidge, he died from his burns, unfortunately. His mother, Jessica Smith, is suing the owner of the company that hired Elderidge as a contractor to set up the butane hash oil extraction system, which law enforcement said at the time was set up illegally. And one of the defendants, Joseph Donahue, 38, was the owner of a company, Premortal Mountain LLC, which, according to business filings, said artisanal body care and gourmet products that are preventative, intergenerative, holistic, and organic. The lawsuit says Donahue and Elderidge and others were assembling the BHO system when they spotted the leak, and everyone evacuated, but the lawsuit alleges Donahue then instructed Elderidge to accompany him back inside to stop the leak. When Elderidge and Donahue went back inside, the suit says the system exploded. Smith is also suing the owners of the White City warehouse where that exploded, a couple that lives in Virginia but has a second residence in Madras, and the companies that sold extraction materials to Elderidge. None of the defendants responded to a request for comment, and in August of 2023, Donahue was convicted of criminal negligent homicide in the death of Elderidge and of first-degree arson for an incident involving cannabis manufacturing. It appears he was living in Virginia at the time, but also had, for a time, a residence in Ashland, Oregon. Donahue is serving 3 years probation, but received no time in prison, court records indicate. And court records also show that law enforcement found multiple firearms, unidentified pills, LSD, and psilocybin mushrooms at the warehouse. The other plaintiff listed in the lawsuits is the young daughter of Elderidge, who lives in New Mexico. Well. Man, that's a sad story, but what do you think about this, Dr. Mark? I mean, the filing of a lawsuit on a manufacturer of equipment because it leaked, and I mean, it could have even been their own malfunction in the assembly portion of it that caused that leak. What do you think?
Yeah, well, I mean, this is the reason why you have to have standards in manufacturing that, producers of equipment for that manufacturing have to follow. For the most part, there's a lot of use of flammable solvents in cannabis extraction. And every once in a while, you do hear about a fire or an explosion or something like that. Often what's the case is that those machines are not inspected properly to make sure that things like valves or wherever there could be a leak of flammable gas, that, there's, basically safety countermeasures in place to keep those things from causing these types of accidents. So, with fire in particular, right, we teach the fire triangle. So there's three things you need. You need fuel, you need oxygen, and you need a source of ignition. So if you have all three of those things, you get a fire. So, when you were talking about the incident itself, I was trying to, be like the inspector and be like, okay, where did things go wrong here? Was there a source of ignition? Typically what you hear is that closed-loop butane extraction is done in what's called a C1D1 room or a C1D1 environment. That's a Class 1, Division 1 environment that's defined by the U.S. Fire Protection Agency or something like that, the people who basically set up standards for how to operate equipment dealing with, flammable gases and stuff like that. And so the provisions in a C1D1 room is like all of the lights and all of the switches where there could be that source of ignition that's important in the fire triangle are eliminated. Right, so the fluorescent lights or the light switches, when you flick a light switch in a room, there's a short arc of electricity that could essentially be that spark of electricity in a saturated room with a lot of gas in it. That could be all that you need to basically make a explosion or fire happen. I would say for the most part, there are equipment manufacturers out there who are paying a lot of attention to these kinds of issues and making sure that their systems are safe. Now, that said, if you don't have regular inspection of those facilities, these machines can be Frankensteined into something that's out of spec pretty easily. So I think that's part of the issue is that, when people were first doing what was called open blasting, right? They were just putting weed in a PVC tube with a coffee filter down on the end and just jamming cans of butane through it. And butane is a liquid when it's inside the can, but when it's allowed to expand, it basically becomes a gas. But when you super saturate an area with a gas and it gets above basically the dew point of butane, there is such a thing, it'll actually make a liquid that then runs down through the tube and it extracts all the golden yummies from the trichome. Well, then what was done in the open blasting days is they would just take that tray of butane cannabis extract out in the yard and just let the butane boil away. In a closed loop system, what you're doing is you're doing that inside the extraction system, and when you boil that butane away, that butane is then recaptured, recondensed into a liquid and added back to your solvent tank. That closes the loop in a closed loop system. So somewhere here, obviously, there was a leak. Maybe that could have been detected with a butane sensor. So there's butane sensors that I often have in these C1D1 rooms.
Well, hold on.
And so
Dr. Mark, I wonder if the state of Oregon could possibly have some liability possibly in this too, and the family just hasn't gone after them yet, because Nick Bradley says in the chat in regards to that Oregon does not have C1D1 regulations for BHO extraction.
Yeah, so that's a problem right there, and we know I know several operations in Oregon that do closed loop butane extraction. So I mean, yeah, this is part of the issue. Is that in a C1D1 environment, you do need to sort of inspect that periodically. Again, make sure that the right countermeasures are in place. So butane is heavier than air, and so butane will sink in the room.
Yeah.
And so what you typically do is you put your butane sensors toward the floor of the room.
Yep.
That way, as soon as you sense any butane in the room, those alarms go off, and typically what that alarm triggers is it triggers a fan to exhaust
similar to CO2, similar to CO2, the same thing, right?
Yeah, same kind of thing, right? But obviously, I mean, there are rooms where if it fills up with a gas, it becomes an asphyxiation hazard. Yep. So there's all kinds of safety issues that dot the landscape around extraction, and I think part of this is there could be some onus back on the Oregon regulatory board who granted that facility its license. What kind of rigorous inspection program do they have to make sure that
now you're just assuming
like
you're just assuming they had a license, because judging by the website, I'm not sure if they had a license in the first place.
Right. Maybe they were completely not licensed. Now they're buying secondhand equipment that could have leaks, and because they never had it installed in the right way, they probably never put the sensors in the room. They weren't even probably in a C1D1 room. So there's all kinds of problems around this, Jason, for sure.
You have any thoughts on this, Matthew?
Number one, if anybody uses cannabis with intention, and it might take a little bit of meditation, focus, eating some good food, and doing some other things to clear your mind. One of the messages from cannabis is respect of the earth and respect for our life support systems. Butane has always been a horrible way of extracting extra profit from something that really should be used for RSO through alcohol or other healing modalities with oil for folks who actually have medical need for cannabis, in my opinion. Butane was always horrible. I know tons of people who have been harmed and lost their houses and property, not even because they were doing butane extraction, but one of their neighbors blew up their house and caused a wildfire that burnt out several houses. It happened in Mendo a ton in the early 2000s. Yep. And I don't think that the closed loop system is an excuse or a reason for getting into butane. You can make the finest quality bubble hash and or rosin if you need or want to have a hash product. And even with the closed loop system, even if you are reclaiming 100% of your butane, in order to get butane, we have to support drilling in the North Sea and other environments that should be protected. There's these huge rigs that go down and drill into the ocean floor miles down, harming all types of wildlife, causing further accumulation of greenhouse gases in our atmosphere. There's no reason for butane other than greed. So I would just tell everybody, I hear you. You have your own excuses or reasons why you've been using butane and butane extraction to make money. Go to the mirror, take a look at yourself, look at the food you put into your body, look at the substances you put into your body. Ask yourself a question. Do you care about yourself? Because if you care about yourself, Earth and the rest of its inhabitants are a part of your being. All of us are connected. None of us is actually separate from each other. If you care about yourself, start making better decisions for yourself. One of the number one decisions to make for yourself is to stop ruining the environment to get high when you don't.
Mm-hmm. Fair enough. Mm-hmm. Fair enough. Good points, Mathieu St. Germain. And on that, we do want to thank Ingrid Fay for a very big super chat. She says, thank you for all the great news, coverage, and knowledge this week. So thank you, Ingrid, for the super chat. We do appreciate that so much. And I think it's just about time for us to go today, you guys. Yes, thank you all for joining us for another High at 9 News every Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific and high noon on the East Coast. Big thank yous to our audience and supporters for tuning in daily and listening to the insanity that is the developing cannabis industry. Huge thank you to Catalyst and Zen Brands and all of you sponsors. We appreciate you all. Cloud Media Partners, and thank you all for tuning in. You spending your time with us every Monday through Friday and learning about the developing cannabis industry. Mathieu St, Germain, Dr. Mark, y'all have a blessed day and have a safe Cinco de Mayo weekend. Make sure you look on Saturday for our Blacklist collab video too. We'll see you soon.